Hi, everyone, and welcome back. It's so good to be with you. And just getting my light on here. We are in Mold Week this week. So, this week is Mold Week. I'm so excited to do this with you all. And what we are doing today is we had over 150 questions submitted today for our Q&A. And then we've compiled them, our team's compiled them to our top 8. So we're going to go through these top 8 mold questions today and see what else we dive into. We've got about a half an hour Facebook Live planned for you. While people are still joining on, let me do some of our quick disclaimers here that, of course, this is for informational, educational purposes. We're not here to treat, cure, prevent any disease, disorder, and do work with your healthcare provider. If you see affiliate links, then we're very circumspect about anything that we recommend. We've tried it out. We've tried it in the clinic. A lot of these things I purchased myself, use personally. If you see something that resonates with you and seems like it would help you, if you buy through our links, we do make a small commission. I like to be very transparent about that. It goes towards all of our free resources we put out for you guys, the Facebook Lives, the blog posts, the emails, and all that. So if you're called to support us back, that's a way that you can do that, and it doesn't cost you anything more. So let's dive into Mold Week. We've got so many people on here. It's so good to be with you guys. And I see already Patty and Patty's saying hi here, Rosemary, good to see you guys, and Mary, Deanna, Ellen. So pop in if you're on with us, your name and where you're from. That's how I can see who's on with us. And I just love seeing your names because it kind of brings your energy into what we're doing here, but also it makes us a community. That's how we're a community here. So why don't we start diving in with some of these questions? So I'm going to start with some of these pre-submitted ones. We're going to do 8. So we took the 150. Our team consolidated them down to the top 8 questions that were the most, had the most reactions that people really wanted to get answered. And some of them that were repeats, if we saw the same question a lot, then those really got pulled out. So that's what we're going to jump into. And then with the rest of the time, we'll do some of the questions that are coming into the Q&A. But these were so common. I really wanted to make sure we got to these questions. So let's start with this one. Since mold is basically unavoidable and a part of life, how can I boost my immune system and become less sensitive to mold and mycotoxins in other places without being paranoid about re-exposure? That's a huge question. And that's a wonderful question. I'm just curious how many other people might have that same question. But that's one I wondered about quite a bit for myself. There is mold everywhere. We know that. There's been mold on this planet longer than there have been human beings. And we've never lived not in mold. What happens is that when we've been overly exposed, we've been exposed quite a bit to mold, particularly if we've had that in addition to some of the other 3 major drivers of mast cell activation syndrome. So for those of you who maybe not heard me say that, I want to go over it again. And those who heard it, I think it just helps to hear repetition. That always helped me anyway. So toxins, pathogens, and stressors. Stressors can be physical, emotional, traumatic, spiritual, just stressors. Those are the 3 major triggers. So when we've had mold toxins, so there's a toxin, we may have pathogen because we may have colonization. And then if we also combine that with stressors, that's like the triple whammy for MCAS. And MCAS is highly linked with sensitivities. So how do we improve all of this and get less sensitive? 1, we give our bodies, and particularly it's our nervous system mast cell axis. It's the neuroimmunological axis that drives these sensitivities. And somewhat our detox pathways and hormones and things like that. But the neurological, immunological, the nervous system, immune system are really driving sensitivities. And so when we talk about boosting the immune system, we have to think about there's different branches, just like with the military. There's the Army, there's the Navy, there's the Air Force. And then, we've got these sub forces like the Marines and the Navy SEALs and so on. So our immune system has a lot of branches, and there are branches that kill pathogens, and there are branches that can drive long-term inflammation when that pathogen killing side gets overwhelmed. And we can think about those as a seesaw. So if we kill pathogens, if we're in that pathogen killing mode, this chronic inflammatory mode can calm down, because we got the seesaw. We're really fighting things off. We're strong. We don't need to be fortifying everywhere with chronic inflammation. But guess what balance or imbalance mast cell activation syndrome is? It's typically when we've lost the pathogen killing side, because we've got so much. We don't lose it completely usually, but it's really dampened because we've got such a toxin, stressor, pathogen load or any combo there. And this chronic inflammatory side goes up. The longer this chronic inflammatory side goes up and the more we have nervous system dysregulation with it, the more we're going to be sensitive and stay sensitive. So we're going to boost this pathogen killing side and calm this chronic inflammatory mast cell activation syndrome side. That's kind of the approach. As we do that, sensitivities typically improve greatly, but often we have to take a real break from everything triggering us. So that means toxins, break from pathogen exposures. We don't begin tick bites and things like that. We've got to calm the nervous system, and we've got to get out of chronic stress. And that's the one missing piece I see over and over and over, because it's just the water we swim in. It's like the two fish swimming underwater, and one fish is a flying fish. So he's jumped up and come down, and he's seen that there's something different than the water that all the other fish are swimming in. And so he's jumped up and he's come back down, and he comes down next to a different fish. Let's say a flying fish comes down next to a puffer fish that's never been jumped out of the water and seen there's something else. And so the puffer fish looks over at the flying fish, and the flying fish says, "Hey, how's the water?" And the puffer fish says, "What's water? What the heck is water?" Because it's just what he's swimming in. He doesn't realize it. And that's how we are with stress until we get out of stress. So this is a big part of how do we reboot these sensitivities. Now, all that said, if I'm in significant mold exposure, I don't feel well. I start to get brain fogged and tired and all that. But I can now go in and out of places that have mold, and I'm okay as long as I don't spend too long. I just stayed at a cabin that's a beautiful cabin that looks over a river, and came in, and there was mold in the HVAC system. And I could smell it, and my eyes got itchy, and I just turned off the HVAC, and I had brought space heaters just in case and some air purifiers, and I just set them all up and heated the place with the space heaters instead of the HVAC system, and I was okay. A couple years ago, I probably wouldn't have been okay in that place. So I'm just sharing that because you can see how we can improve over time. So I do think we can get better. We can get much better. I do think we can tolerate a lot more as we go if we really take care of ourselves to heal. That said, we don't want to go drink bleach. We don't want to go, expose ourselves to uranium. We don't want to go be in recover our health and go, oh, well, I'll be fine now living in this 100-year-old house that's had a lot of water damage and a lot of mold is in it. That's a recipe for getting sick again. But to say, well, could I go on a vacation again by the ocean? Yeah, I see a lot of people get back to doing those things and do really well. So hang on to those. The reason I spent so long with this question is because hearing stories of hope and recovery was what kept me going. And my guess is it helps you guys too. And if it does, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know, because one of the things we had done some early this year was to bring on people who had gotten certain levels of recovery, who had been really horribly ill, so that you could hear those stories. And if you want to hear those again, let me know in the comments. And we can make that happen. I just want to make sure that's what you guys like and helps you. If it's not, then we'll do something else. Okay, let's go this next one. Assuming you have a reputable company assess and remediate mold, how do you know mold won't come back? That's a good question. You don't. The best way to make sure mold doesn't come back, one is make sure, you got it all. Because if there's little tendrils, they're called hyphae, and they're microscopic like roots, and they can vary into drywall and things like that. So the standard for an indoor environmental professionals who are really working with these health issues is if you see water damage, cut out 2 feet beyond that. So you got all the little microscopic tendrils. Sometimes people just try to minimize the cutout, but really go 2 feet out, get it all. So there's not pieces of mold in there to regrow. Control water intrusion. Don't let there be water intrusion in your house if you can at all help it. So keep your gutters in good repair. I disconnected the water line to the ice maker in my fridge. And a lot of people will disconnect the water line to the water dispenser if you have one. Why? That's the most common place for leaks in a house, is the water line to the fridge. So I just disconnected it. Don't have a humidifier, whole house humidifier on the HVAC. I used to really recommend whole house dehumidifiers, and my whole house dehumidifier developed mold. So I had to replace the whole system. That's eventually what happened. And actually, Christina, we were talking about, Christina's in the background here for us. She supports our Facebook Lives. We were talking about what to do here with Mold Week. And I think it'd be really good if we talked about kind of that story of how I found the mold in the HVAC and what happened. So maybe we can add that on this week for Mold Week and have a special Facebook Live. So let's see what we can pull together for you guys. And I can tell you that story more and kind of my remediation story, and then how I found another round and how we really got rid of all of it. And it includes actinomycetes, the toxic bacteria. So if you guys want to hear that, let us know that in the comments. And if that's of interest to you and could help you, let us know. And if there's enough interest, then we'll see about adding that on this week for you all for Mold Week. So let me recap what we talked about. Make sure when you remediate, you get rid of all of the mold that's in the house as best as you can. And know that most people end up doing 2 or 3 rounds of remediation. That's okay. That's not what you want, but that's just kind of how it tends to go. So just be easy with yourself is what I'm saying. And then there's make sure all the water intrusion is handled. There's no roof leaks. There's no gutters leaking. There's no water when it rains heavy pooling against your house. Just really go through all of that. And you might want to pick up John Banta's prescription for a healthy house. We can put a link in there. Jamie can drop that in there for you all. Then control your humidity. So whether you've got to use dehumidifiers, what I did was upgraded my HVAC system because I found out the HVAC system was undersized for the house and it wasn't controlling the humidity properly. But if you can't upgrade it, get those standalone dehumidifiers. That way, something happens to them that's easy to change out as opposed to whole house one. And keep those buckets really clean. Clean the buckets of the dehumidifier out twice a week with hydrogen peroxide. Or if you want to have it drained directly into a drain, you pour hydrogen peroxide 12% down the drain. And we kind of go over this in our mold course. I'll talk to you about that in just a minute. We talk about all these steps. And if you do those things, that should really help for mold to not come back. So those are the big steps. And I go into a lot more detail on that in our environmental mold module and the module on what to do if you're still exposed to mold. So might check those out if you have these questions. Do symptoms typically go away immediately after remediation, or should you expect to still feel the effects? And if so, for how long? That's another great question. Some people, if they only had mold toxicity and it was kind of recent and they get a remediation. The symptoms for those people tend to clear up kind of quickly, especially if they're doing a detox program. So we've got different segments of people and responses depending on what's happened in their health. So I do see that. I see that more common in children and people who've just not been exposed for very long. Maybe they got sick 6 months ago or something. If you've been exposed for a long time, even when you get the environment cleared up, you may still have a lot of mold toxins in your body, and that can take time to clear out. And so if you do still have those mold toxins, you might still feel pretty yucky with them circulating. Maybe feel better, hopefully. There's a lot of circulation. Then there's those of us that have colonization, and I talk a lot about colonization in the mold course in more detail, a lot of detail. And what to do. But colonization is where the spores get into your sinuses, just inhaling them in. They set up residence. The sinuses are perfect environment for fungal growth because it's dark, it's damp, and there's not a lot of airflow compared to like across your skin. This is one of the reasons it's really good to breathe through your nose. And if you breathe through your mouth like I used to, then to train yourself. I had to train myself to breathe through my nose, and it took me quite some time. But I eventually trained myself, and that helped my sinuses. But I still had to address what was here in the sinuses. And then what was in the sinuses, every time I swallow that mucus, and we don't like to think about that, but we all swallow mucus. And we just swallow the spores, and then it goes down and inhabits the GI tract. That's how we get mold into the GI tract. So we have to address all that, because even if we get all the mold in the environment cleaned up, this mold that's colonized in us, it actually produces mold toxins. And it doesn't just produce mold toxins, it produces enzymes like proteases and hydrolases. And if you ever looked at the back of a digestive enzyme, those words are going to sound familiar. There's all kinds of enzymes they make. And the reason they make those enzymes is that once mold's growing in us, it has to have a food source. So it makes those enzymes to break down our tissues to get out nutrients. And that's why mold colonization can be so destructive to health and a huge, huge trigger. And why I say it's the number one trigger to mast cell activation syndrome, especially when we've had a lot of stress or a history of trauma or abuse or anything like that. Then you add onto that a history of tick-borne illnesses like Lyme or Bartonella. Mold toxins just make all of that 100 times worse. And mold colonization makes it so much worse. So that's why I just really want to encourage you all to learn more about colonization. And that way you'll know kind of what to expect. If you're interested in the course, I'll give you some details here in a minute. Then you can find out a lot about it, a lot of depth, way more than we could ever do in Facebook Lives. But and what do you do? So how do you find out? How do you figure out if you're colonized, and what do you do? And so those are the different buckets in terms of how quickly does it take us to get better. And then the other thing is, did we really get it all in the remediation? There's 3 major reasons that we get stuck. And if we can add this on, if there's enough interest, and we can add on the extra one this week, then like I'll talk about those major reasons that people don't get well. So if you want to hear that this week, oh, we got a lot. Yes to HVAC stories. Okay, good. Well, let's add that on, Christina, and we'll find a time for you all and get that announced. But one of those, and I'll talk about the other 2 if you can remind me, Christina, for when we do this. One of those is thinking we're out of exposure and we're not, and we're still getting colonized. Another one is if someone else in our household is colonized, including pets. So I want to talk about that more when we do this Facebook Live for you all, this bonus one. I'm going to come back to some more questions. I just wanted to share with you quickly that we do have a huge sale going on right now for the mold course. If you guys are interested, I want to make sure you know about this. It's $100 off the basic level and $200 off the advanced. This is the biggest sale on this mold course. We did a bundle for the summit, And then we're doing this one because we wanted to give you all some resources to help you with your journey and really discount this a good bit, but we can't discount it long term. We can just do it this week. So I wanted to make sure you knew we won't have a Black Friday sale that beats this or anything. If it's, listen and see if it resonates with you, if that's your next step. But if it is, I just always like you guys to know what the sale is and how you can save money. So if you're looking for that, then you'll find it on our website at mastcell360.com/mold-course. So mastcell360.com/mold-course. And for people that buy this week, or if you purchased historically, you'll get a free bonus with Michael Schrantz. So in addition to what we're going to do about the HVAC story, Michael Schrantz is one of our top environmental mold experts in the country, and he's agreed to do a live Q&A with us. So we're going to do that as a bonus for everybody that purchases this week or had previously purchased the course. So if you want that bonus, this is the time to get that. Okay, so let's jump into another question. How long can mold stay in your body? Does it become more toxic the longer it remains in the body? That's an interesting question. I don't know if it becomes more toxic. It may depend. It can become more toxic if you're colonized, if you do ozone. So I often recommend not to use like a dental ozone is different if you're doing that, or sinus ozone. But the kind of 10-pass IV ozone, to wait until you've addressed mold colonization. And I have a vague memory, don't quote me on this, this would be something to research. Jill Christ would be the person who would know this. But I seem to recall that ozone may make mycotoxins more toxic. There's other things that can make it more toxic. For example, a combination of chemical toxins, the combination of other mycotoxins, because, you know, when we put chemicals together, they combine and make new compounds. And a lot of the chemicals in the environment, we don't even know what they are, because all these chemicals being pumped out combine and make new compounds, and they've not been studied. So we don't even know the toxicity of a lot of what's out there. But it certainly can, doesn't mean it has to, but it can. And Jill Krista taught me, she's one of my dear friends and a mentor for me, and particularly mold and pans and pandas. And Jill Krista taught me that for those with gliotoxin, and gliotoxin is produced by Aspergillus and Candida, that for some people with really high levels of gliotoxin, sulfur compounds can increase the potency of it, which is kind of a way we could say it kind of makes it more toxic to the body. So there are ways that it can, but it's not necessary. How long can it stay in the body? Our whole lives. And something to keep in mind too is that mycotoxins can pass through the placenta and the breast milk. And so if you are pregnant, there are ways to protect your fetus. If you're breastfeeding, there's ways to protect your baby. And if you're deciding whether or not to get pregnant, if possible, it's good to get your mold detox finished. Because, excuse me, you can't do some of the herbals and things like that. But there's a whole module on that too in the advanced course. And that's included for more advanced lay people, and also for people who are practitioners and so on. But even if you're an advanced lay person, you love to do these Facebook Lives and summits and podcasts, it's also at that level. All right, let's get some more of these questions in. I've had a major cognitive loss. After 14.5 years of working in moldy buildings, I'm now completely disabled. Can I regain my cognitive function? This is in here because many people have experienced cognitive loss, brain fog. I went from being the top of my class and taking graduate level courses in the undergrad and teaching, having a teaching position that required a master's, and I didn't have a bachelor's yet, and doing independent study research, to being unable to read a book. I was helping to write research papers, published research papers in social psychology with a PhD student, and I couldn't read a simple journal article anymore. I've regained my cognitive functioning completely, and I think I'm sharper now than I've been in my life, but I'm 45, so I may have had that window. It may depend on how old we are, how long it's been in our bodies, but I started getting serious, severe mold exposure at 7 years old. And so I'd had, 30 years of mold exposure before I started detoxing. One of the best tools for me, in addition to really repairing my gut, getting the nutrients up, was phosphatidylcholine as an exchange in a particular brand called Essential N or Essential N. It's a brand that comes out of Switzerland. There's a pharmacy called Paracelsus, and functional medicine practitioners can order it and do it. And sometimes people will do it as an IV as well. I've had the best experience myself as doing it with that European brand as what's called an exchange. What that can do when it's an IV is repair the brain cells. It gets past the blood-brain barrier into the brain. The brain needs a lot of phospholipids. And that Essential N is a whole phospholipid complex. If you all can get access to that, that is really healing for the brain. But you've got to already be on binders. You need to be past sensitivities. You don't want to start there. That's advanced. And I talk about this in the course and when that would normally be introduced. And so it's more advanced later down the road with the protocols. But I've seen really good turnarounds with that and getting the toxins out. I've seen, I had a client who, she was in a wheelchair. She hadn't even been exposed for that long. She was like 19 in a wheelchair and was having 20 seizures a day. She couldn't form sentences and she couldn't type more than a couple words, like to text. And she'd get just easily dysregulated from the brain, just the brain effects, the brain damage of the exposure she'd had. And within a year, she was seizure-free, out of the wheelchair, applying to college, and had really gotten her functioning back. Now, she was young, but I've also seen people who were heading into early dementia get back, and Dale Bredesen's doing amazing work there with Alzheimer's, and mold toxins are one of the biggest things that he works on. In addition to other toxins and everything, but he's fully embraced and seen the effects of mycotoxins on cognitive function as well. So his work may be really helpful to anybody dealing with cognitive function. And his book is The End of Alzheimer's. The other thing, if you got the summit, is to check with Dane Goodenough's interview that Kelly McCann did on cognitive health as well. But bottom line, yes, I do find we can regain our functioning. How can I afford to have mold toxicity checked in my apartment, let alone pursue solutions to it when MCAS limits my ability to work fully and keeps me from having savings at all? I get it. And I get it personally because when I was divorced from my first marriage, I made $13,000 a year. And all I could afford was a little rental. And I had way too much sensory processing issues to live in an apartment. And so I found a little rental house that was on a little bit of land. And I paid $300 a month. That's how run down and bad shape this house was. It gave me peace and quiet, but I didn't know about mold. I didn't know how toxic it was. I could see the mold growing. I could see it in the basement. I could smell it. I just didn't know how toxic it was, and I got really, really sick there. I don't know the answer for everybody. I can tell you what I did. What I did was I didn't know what we know now. You know, this was 20 years ago. So I knew about getting outside to get fresh air. I knew about eating really good food, really clean food. And so what I did was things like, this is a little side trip and I'll come back. I would go to the farmer's market and to the organic tables and ask them if they had any produce they couldn't sell today if they were throwing out, or if they had any produce they could sell at a discount because it was marred or whatever. And a lot of times they would help me out. I always asked very kindly without any attachment to it. And one day, I really didn't know. I honestly, this was part of the time in my life, I did not know if I was going to live. I didn't know if I was going to survive because I was so ill. And I didn't know how I was going to get out. And I surrendered and I prayed. And what I did was I prayed that if I got out, I would dedicate my life to helping people and to being in service, and to help people with what I learned. And I was walking in the woods, back on a part that was more of an animal trail and wasn't a place where people normally hiked. It wasn't a hiking trail. I like to just explore. And I was walking pretty slowly because I was very sick. And that probably helped me because I looked down and I was way off the main trail. And there was folded up $3. And I picked up the $3 and started crying because I knew somehow in that moment that I was going to be okay. I don't know how I knew. I didn't go out looking for $3 or any money or expecting anything. I just had said either I will die, and I know that's kind of morbid, but that's what happened. I said, I'm going to completely let go, and whatever is in store for me is what's in store for me, but I'm going to show up. Every day I'm going to show up, and I'm going to do what I can do. And I did everything every day that I could do. And then when I found that $3, I just had a knowing that I would be okay. Now, it didn't mean I wasn't scared. I was scared. I was having meltdowns. But I just knew to my core somehow it would be okay. And I kind of slowly got out. I got jobs that I could do. I kept putting feelers out, but I kept with non-attachment. Maybe that's what helped me. Not detachment, but real Buddhist kind of non-attachment that Thich Nhat Hanh teaches. And I read a lot of spiritual books and had a lot of spiritual practices. Coming back to the mold toxicity in the apartment, what I would really suggest is Prescriptions for a Healthy House. John Banta is one of the co-authors. Get on his website. He's worked with people in apartments to help them identify where the mold was and help them with really simple cleaning protocols. For, like, one story he told me about was there was mold with a coming in from a window, a leaky window that the apartment complex owner would not fix. And so what they did some testing. They figured out it was that exact window. He gave her a particular cleaning protocol with Swiffer cloths to wipe that whole area a few feet away from the window every day and wipe up the spores and the toxins. And she healed enough that a year later, she got a better job and moved out. And I think she went back to graduate school. And then she could get into a place that was better for her. So always look for the next open door. Check out that book. You might check out his website, look at his pathways testing, things like that. See if there's a way that maybe you could just get the pathways testing map to narrow it down or something like that. See what's possible. One of the other things that really helped me was there was a woman who was very spiritual, and she was working with me. And I just told her how dark my life felt at the time. And she said, consider the possibility it could be different. Just consider the possibility that things could change. And that kind of opened up a door in my mind that maybe I wouldn't be there the rest of my life. And I would see in my mind it paint it on my kitchen wall. I didn't have the energy to do it, but I would see it on my kitchen wall. If I could have painted it, I would have painted it on there. Consider the possibility. And that's what got me through also. Just consider the possibility wherever we are. Consider the possibility that we can have a healthier environment, but then hold really loosely what that looks like. And don't get caught into it has to be a particular way. Consider the possibility. And then who knows what'll come when we really open ourselves. And that's what I found. So I hope that's helpful to all of you that are exposed to mold. Your story may look completely different than mine, but sometimes I tell the stories, so maybe it'll spark something. Okay, can inactive or dry old mold still make you sick? And if so, how does it do it? It can. And I know some of it has to do with the fragments that we can breathe in. Some of it is that mold is one of those interesting organisms. The spores can last for thousands of years. But let's talk with Michael Schrantz about that more. Christina, if you can save that question for us, then let's get that into the Q&A, because with him being the real expert there, I would really love for him to answer that question for us in more depth. I know it can. That's why cleaning your home is important and making sure that you're using those allergen covers. We've got those in our mold resources pages for you guys, but the allergen covers for your pillows and your bedding and all of that is really important. So I'm going to flip over here. We'll come back to this. Let's get more info about it from one of the top experts. I'm going to flip over to some of our current questions for today here for just a few minutes. So many wonderful questions in here. And just before we jump into that, I just wanted to pop this up for anybody who wanted to, let me switch this over here. For anybody that wants to take a screenshot of it, and this is about our bonus coming up here. Okay, so if you're interested in the mold course, we've got, you can take a screenshot of this. Even if you're not sure, maybe take a screenshot so you can come back to it, because I just don't want you to lose the coupon codes. So if you were thinking about picking it up, this is your best time. You can get $100 off the basic course or $200 off the advanced course. And if you've not seen the prices, I, again, love full transparency. I want you to know all the details. So that's our biggest sale. It takes the course from $699 to $499 for the advanced, and the basic from $249 to $149. And if you're not sure, there's a whole video on that page when you go to mastcell360.com/mold-course. If you go there, then what you'll see is a video that takes you through the difference between the basic and advanced. If you have questions, reach out to our team. They'll help you. They're happy to help you. And this is just through Friday, this Friday, November 10th at midnight. So I just always hate it when I'm looking for something, I'm going to buy it, and it was on sale and I missed the sale and all that. So I just want you guys to know. And for anybody that buys this week or that buys by November 10th at midnight or before, let's put it that way. So if you previously bought or you're buying this week, you're going to get a bonus Q&A with Michael Schrantz, who's one of our top environmental mold experts. And we're going to talk about a lot of your environmental mold questions. And you'll get that special bonus that'll be out here in a couple weeks. Okay, so I'm going to leave all this up and jump into a few other of your questions here. There's so many, you guys. You just wonderful questions and really brilliant questions. So I'm going to just pick some randomly here. Hi, Missy. So Missy's asking about hair loss. That is one of the hardest symptoms, Missy, for all of us that have dealt with it. And it's very common with mold toxins. Mold toxins really disrupt the thyroid, which affects our hair, can affect our nutrient absorption. I know I have a lot of hair, which I'm grateful for, but you guys, I lost half of my hair. And just for context, my hair used to be so thick when I blow dried it, it looked like I was in an 80s hairband. I mean, it would be out to here. This is flat for my hair. I'm not complaining. I'm really grateful for the hair I have left. But I'm telling you all that because when I go get my hair cut and she's pulling up my hair and looking at it, she used to have to thin it. She used to have to thin out 30% of my hair so it wouldn't be insanely wavy and everywhere and unmanageable. But she's telling me now that she's seeing new hair growth back here. She's seeing new hair growth up in here. So it's coming back. My sister had autoimmune alopecia. It was both toxin and stress triggered. She had it for years and years and years. Her hair came back. I've seen hair come back for most people. If it doesn't come back, there are, and we do some things to help. You got to get the toxins out. You got to get out of the environmental exposures. You've got to address stress and the nervous system dysregulation. If it's autoimmune, it may take some immune balancing. Got to see, is it just falling out at the roots? If it's breaking, that's often like betaine HCl or minerals. If it's at the roots, then that's usually toxins, thyroid, autoimmune. Could be other things. But there's lots that you can do, and just hang in there, because I know how hard that is. And a lot of women if they lose a lot, they wear a wig for a while. There's no shame in that. And especially if you're getting like the bald patch back here, that's common. It's okay to wear a wig for men, that's a little more socially acceptable, but sometimes men will wear some kind of toupee or something just to get through that time. And then there's all kinds of things, like if it doesn't come back, the laser hair stuff, there's hair plugs, there's a lot that can be done now, fortunately. So just hang in there, you all that are dealing with the hair loss. I know that's hard. Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions. And we were supposed to just have a half-hour Facebook Live, and I can almost never end on time. Let's take this one with Corey. So, can you please speak about Ehlers-Danlos and how it ties into mold and Lyme? Great question, Corey. Ehlers-Danlos that's kind of gone through an evolution of definition, and now it's seen as a hypermobility spectrum. So there's a hypermobility spectrum, how hypermobile the joints are. Ehlers-Danlos is considered at the end, and there's numerous types. The hypermobility form is not considered or has not been found yet to be genetic, although there's probably some genetic predisposition. Well, I'm going to talk not about those genetic forms with the vascular involvement, organ involvement. I'm going to talk just about hypermobility, because that's what's most common. The others are really rare. And with that hypermobility spectrum, a lot of people get into that because mycotoxins and Bartonella, that's a tick-borne infection, both eat away at connective tissue faster than the body can build it. And mold colonization, those enzymes I talked about before, can actually chew away at that connective tissue to get nutrients out of it. Those enzymes can. And when we think about hypermobility, a lot of times people just talk about the joints, or just think about hypermobile elbows and hypermobile fingers and things like that. But we also have to remember skin. So skin is connective tissue, blood vessels are connective tissue, cartilage, like the septum of the nose, the ear cartilage, hair follicles. Have anybody ever had your hair hurt or your teeth and in your gums hurt everywhere? That's connective tissue inflammation. I'm really curious how many people have had their hair hurt. Because I used to have where every follicle in my hair hurt. And if I wore my hair in a ponytail, if I had it in a high ponytail up like this for more than about an hour, it would just hurt so bad. I would be in tears just trying to take the ponytail down. So you can imagine being in high school and with that prom due, and all the bobby pins, I cried taking that down. That's how it ties in. Now, here's the good news. It can improve. I used to have significant hypermobility, and I had a full Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis. My elbows, my knees hyperextended, my little finger, that's as far as my little finger goes. My little finger used to bend back at that angle. My skin used to be very stretchy. This is as far as my skin stretches now. I used to stretch about twice that much. My elbows were clearly hyperextended. That's as far as my elbows go now. This is huge for me. And so same with my knees, they don't hyperextend. And we can reverse it. It takes work. And then there are things that polysaccharides, like in Stockton aloe, Stockton species of aloe, that can help improve the connective tissue. So I hope this was helpful for you guys. Let me just touch on a few things here for where you can find more details of some of these questions. So Francie, these are great questions. Binders for toddlers, and then do binders reduce minerals and vitamins as well as mold? So in the advanced mold course, there's a whole module on children, pregnancy, breastfeeding, and that's in the advanced level. And I think you'll find what you're looking for there. I did a whole binder research update in the course, and that module's already available for anybody who purchases, about the vitamins and minerals that can be affected by binders and by mold, and what to look at testing and supplementing. That is all in there. It's way more than we can do in a Facebook Live, because it was a whole research review, and I show the studies and everything, Francie. So that's in both the basic and the advanced. Elizabeth, why is this a worldwide issue? No one will admit mold exposure is real. I know. I go through that when I go over this research and the literature. I don't have the answer to why, but I go through the definitive evidence that this is real. And you guys, I know you already know this. Mast cell activation syndrome, mold toxicity, even Lyme. We have some great champions in these areas, but these are grassroots health issues. These are health issues that patients, clients, whatever we want to call it, you guys that are sick are driving the education on. So I don't know if you know that, but you all are driving the education on this because you're demanding it, because you're educating yourself, because you're requiring that practitioners get up to speed. It's huge. And that's how MCAS really got on the map. Between that and Dr. Theo Haridi's work, Tanya Dempsey's social media, Yasmina Kellenson interviewing Dr. Theo Harides, and then Dr. Afrin's book, Never Bet Against Occam. But I mean, there's mast cell groups, even just this group, there's so many of you, they're so well educated. This is how we're going to make change. And this is why I do what we do. This is why we put out so many resources. This is why we do these Facebook Lives. This is why we do the blog posts. And this is a big operation, you all. Like, we have, I believe, 14 people now, maybe 15, that put all this together. That's how much it takes. So we have to make some money, because we all got to pay our own bills, right? And that's why we have some courses and things like that, the affiliate linking, and that help us keep putting this out. But we put out a lot of free information too, because we want to support this movement. And so please share these resources. Please share these Facebook Lives. Please share the blog posts. Give them to anybody you want to give them to. Get a copy of the summit recordings and give them to your physician if you have the means for it. If you don't, print off the articles on the blog and take them into your providers. Anybody who's interested, just help them, even if it's not our website. Take them Tanya Dempsey's website. Take them a copy of Dr. Afrin's Never Bet Against Occam. Just get that information out there to people. And that's how we're going to change this. So I'm so grateful you're all on with us. When I was going through this and I was really chronically ill, I was the sickest person I knew. I didn't know anybody at all who was sensitive. I never met anybody who was sensitive. Anybody who had trouble with gasoline or paint smells or diesel exhaust. Didn't know anybody. I just thought either I was extraordinarily ill with some very rare genetic condition or I was crazy. I mean, like that's the only thing I came up with. And it was because Yasmina Kellenson was reporting on it. And she was reporting about histamine intolerance and then oxalates and then lectins and then mast cell activation syndrome. It was because of her and because of the small group of people that she brought together. And we had a little private Facebook group as she got bigger. And we were experimenting and we were sharing information. And that's how I started learning about all this. And that's the same thing you guys are doing. So please help us get this out. However it works for you. Even if you just post it in a Facebook group or you share it with somebody who's sick, and when they're open to it, you can't force things on people. But if somebody's open or your physician says, yeah, I'd love more information, just say, hey, can I send you something? That's how we'll change it. And so I've got to wrap up here, you guys. It's just lovely to be with you, to feel your hearts and your warmth and your kindness, not just with me, but with each other. And so please keep helping each other and being kind and loving. And we're going to be sharing all kinds of mold resources with you this week. We've got the mold sale going on through Friday. Remember, you're going to get this Q&A bonus. And then Christina said, yes, we'll definitely can fit in this HVAC story and just the story of mold remediation and recovery, how I went from, I'm going to share the whole story. And there's new pieces that just have happened this year on how I went from being bedridden, panic attacks daily, unable to work, unable to read a book, to today. And I have a wonderful life. And I want that for you guys too. So let's come back together later this week. We'll get the time together and announce it for you all. Keep checking back, check your email, check our Facebook page, check the website. We're going to have more mold stuff out for you all. And then don't forget, if you are going to pick up the course, these are your coupon codes. And you can, if you're not sure about the advanced, you could start with the basic and you can upgrade. There is an upgrade option. And you'll see that information at the bottom of the mold course page. You've got the link up there for. So I'm going to leave this up for just a minute more. And you can take a screenshot if you want as we're wrapping up here. And a reminder, anybody that purchases by Friday at midnight is going to get that bonus on... oh yeah, Susan's asking, will we get the Q&A bonus if we bought the total course after the summit? Yes, Susan. So if you have bought the course anytime before this Friday at midnight, you're going to get the Q&A bonus. And Michael Schrantz, if you've not heard of him, you might want to look him up. He's one of our top environmental mold experts, and he's also an environmental HVAC expert, and he really helped me pin down this year. John Banta and Michael Schrantz are the two people who really helped me. All right, you all, I got to run. So good to be with you. We're going to see you again this week. More on mold. Keep going no matter what. Just keep going and you will get somewhere. But if you give up, and I'm saying this because so often I wanted to give up. If you give up, you're not going anywhere. And you can have hours of wanting to give up and you can have a whole day. That a friend of mine one point said, why don't you set a timer and set a limit on your grief? And I would set a limit of 20 minutes and let myself have the biggest pity party I wanted and cry and kick and scream. Or sometimes I didn't have the energy for that. So I'd just lay there and wallow. And then the timer would go off. And then I would get back up and do the next thing. So, make sure that you keep moving forward, you all. You will get someplace different if you keep moving. And we'll see you again this week. Sending you love. And I'll see you soon.